A group of people are hiding behind an iron fence to avoid a horde of the undead. They're trying to reach a safe zone where a helicopter is waiting. Suddenly, a loud crash rings out from the direction of a wheelchair. The zombies immediately surge forward, slam into the iron fence, and quickly surround everyone. The group struggles to push the fence ahead. They finally get close to the safe area, only for another gang of criminals to show up and shove them into an even deadlier situation. Enemies in front, zombies behind. Can they make it onto the helicopter and escape this nightmare? Join Movie Recap's official to unpack the whole film today. On a quiet night like any other, Manel and his wife Julia have just left his sister's house and are driving home. On the way, they argue about whether they should have a child. There's a saying that selling gasoline to women is a crime. Distracted, Julia nearly causes an accident for both of them. She hastily corrects the steering to steady the car, but moments later a truck barrels into them, and Julia doesn't survive. Sometime after the crash that took his beloved wife, news about the TSJ virus floods the TV. This rabies-like disease is spreading across the globe, turning the infected into vicious creatures. All preventive measures have failed so far. Manel turns off the TV and goes out for a drive. The car radio is also talking about TSJ. Experts claim the virus originated in an abandoned Soviet laboratory. Although the outbreak hasn't yet touched his daily life, the information saturates every channel. Manel heads to the coast to meet a buyer for his small boat, an object packed with fond memories, but he no longer has the heart to use it. The buyer, however, wants something more luxurious, so Manel returns home. On the way back he stops at a supermarket. His sister Belen keeps calling, but he ignores her. Looking around, he sees people stockpiling supplies. He buys a few things himself and stashes them in the freezer as a precaution. By late afternoon, Belen calls again. Her husband Mario, a soldier, plans to move the family to the Canary Islands that night, and she hopes Manel will go with them. Although the government hasn't made any official announcements yet, Belen believes this virus is truly serious. She has found Manel a flight departing from Vigo the next day, leaving him little choice but to agree. The following day, Manel leaves home with a suitcase and his beloved cat, Luculo. The whole neighborhood is evacuating, and the once peaceful city has turned anxious and chaotic. He turns on the radio and learns the virus's incubation period has shortened dramatically. Symptoms now appear within minutes of infection. When he reaches the airport, it's packed. He and Luculo queue up, only to realize all flights for the day have been cancelled. Everyone's phones buzz with an alert. Belen calls to say the airspace has been shut down and urges him to return home and lock the doors. At that moment, a passenger grabs a security guard's gun, demanding to board a flight. Not wanting to stick around, Manel leaves the airport with the crowd. But on the way home he gets stuck in a massive traffic jam and can't go any farther. After a moment's hesitation, he parks on the roadside, takes Luculo, and decides to walk home. He walks all night and only reaches his building at dawn. As he nears the area, an ambulance blares past and an armed team surrounds a house. Getting closer, Manel sees the person inside is infected, restrained with a catchpole and muzzled, snarling like a wild animal. Stunned, Manel carries Luculo upstairs, collapses on the sofa, and tries to process what is just seen. The next morning, Belen calls to say the airspace won't reopen anytime soon. The government is planning to set up safe zones to control the virus and relocate the population. Some oppose this plan, arguing that concentrating people will only increase the risk of infection. Belen says the safest option for now is to stay home and avoid contact with anyone. Mario is out on patrol but promises to find a way to bring Manel to them when he can. Social media is now flooded with news about the outbreak, and the government announces that all businesses will shut down from 2 p.m. Manel hurries to a nearby supermarket, but the shelves are almost completely stripped. He grabs a few remaining cans of food, then stops by a gas station to look for more essentials. Suddenly, a man clutching an injured arm rushes inside and locks the door behind him. A panicked crowd runs past, shouting that there's an infected person nearby. Manel can't just abandon the man, so he looks for a weapon to be ready to help, just as an infected person charges in like a madman. Fortunately, the injured man manages to shoot and save Manel, thanking him for trying to help. He warns Manel to leave immediately, then takes his own life. Manel returns home, draws the curtains, and spends the entire day reinforcing the yard's outer fence and setting up a makeshift camera at the front door. The government later sends buses to evacuate residents from densely populated areas to safe zones. Belen tells Manel not to board, advising him to stay put and wait for them to come get him. Even so, soldiers go door to door to make sure everyone has left. When they approach, Manel quickly grabs Luculo and hides under the table. Unable to open the door, the soldiers move on. 2 weeks pass without any sign of Belen, but Manel is still safe. He's using solar power to keep the electricity on and still has some food left. Even so, he can't reach Belen, and his supplies are running low. With no other choice, he decides to venture out for provisions. Fully geared up and on edge, he heads into the street. He tries the neighbors' houses, but most have been cleared out before their owners left. At the next house, he's startled to find an elderly woman crouched inside who introduces herself as Gabriella. She says her son promised days ago to take the grandchildren to safety and then return, but he hasn't shown up. The evacuation team left her behind because she had difficulty moving. Her food is also gone, but she knows the area well and directs Manal to homes that might still have supplies. Thanks to her guidance, Manal finds some food and even discovers a motorcycle with a full tank. With it, he can expand his search radius, but after a sweep he gathers only a small amount. Only one house remains, the place where the first infected person had appeared. Manal gives the old woman a walkie-talkie, then decides to risk going in. As he's looking at the fish tank, he senses someone approaching. He spins and fires. The man bolts in fear before Manal can explain he means no harm. Because of the commotion, Manal happens to discover a cache of food under the stairs. That night, he and the old woman enjoy a hearty meal after a long period of scarcity. Having gone 2 weeks without seeing any other survivors, he talks with her for a long time before heading home. Late at night, the walkie-talkie crackles to life. The old woman tells him to turn on the radio. Some organization is broadcasting a signal to survivors, announcing they can come to the Arusa estuary for assistance and will be ferried to the Canary Islands for refuge. They even provide exact coordinates. Though unsure whether the information is trustworthy, Manal knows that if he stays, he'll starve. He decides to use his boat to reach the estuary and is prepared to take the old woman with him. The next day, Manal packs light and radios to ask if she's ready, but there's no reply. He goes to check and opens the back door with a spare key. On the table, he finds a note thanking him for caring for her over the past week. Not wanting to be a burden, she has quietly ended her life. Overwhelmed with grief, Manal steps back into the street and is suddenly attacked by a female zombie. He kicks her to break away, but she grabs his leg and drags him down. In the nick of time, Manal slams a car door into the zombie's head, tangling her hair, then quickly assembles a weapon and finishes her off, escaping by inches. Afterward, he sends a message to his sister saying he'll make his own way there to find her family, and sets out with his cat, Luculo. However, the highway had been blocked, forcing Manal to turn back and take small back roads to reach the harbor. But in this zombie-infested world, riding a noisy motorcycle was practically asking to get caught. The sound of the engine attracted a swarm of the undead, but thanks to the bike's speed, he managed to outrun them. When he reached the camp at the foot of the hill, he accidentally rode into an area filled with zombies, but the motorcycle was fast enough to get him out. Suddenly, a pile of corpses appeared in front of him, causing him to crash. The moans and screams of the undead grew closer. Panicking, Manal grabbed Luculo, lifted the bike, and tried to continue. But after the fall, the engine wouldn't start. Terrified, he abandoned the motorcycle and ran on foot. Luckily, the harbor was nearby. Manal rushed through the gate and locked it behind him, but the glass door couldn't withstand the pressure for long and began to crack under the weight of the horde. Finally, he managed to open a metal gate, trapping the zombies outside, though he knew he couldn't stay there for long. Exploring the area, he found a small cabin containing some fishing gear and glow sticks. He took only what was necessary and stepped outside, spotting a small boat anchored nearby. Placing Luculo down, he swam toward the boat, unaware of the bloodstains on its deck. After several failed attempts to start the engine, Manal heard strange noises coming from inside the cabin. When he opened it, he discovered a newborn, already infected with the virus. Horrified, Manal abandoned the boat and found a rubber dinghy to continue his journey. But just after midnight, the dinghy ran out of fuel. Drifting on the dark water, he saw dead bodies floating all around him. Then, to his relief, a large ship appeared on the horizon. Desperate, Manal waved his arms and shouted for help. As the ship approached, he realized that 3 rough-looking men stood on deck. Still, they pulled him aboard. A bearded man introduced himself as Victor, and the man in the cap behind him was Captain Ushakov. Victor was the only one who spoke Spanish. Victor asked why Manal was heading toward the river mouth. Manal truthfully replied that he was following a radio signal promising to take survivors to the Canary Islands, where the army and government were gathering people. Victor, a Ukrainian pilot, explained that he had come to the region months earlier to fly firefighting planes but had crashed. The captain had saved his life. Victor gave Manal a cabin to rest in and asked him to help guide them the next day to find food, since the crew didn't know the area well. That night, Manal was awakened by noises outside. Looking through the window, he saw a group of people begging for help, but Victor refused to rescue them. The next morning, when Manal asked Victor about it, he denied seeing any boats or people the previous night. Later, Manal guided the captain to a concrete factory near Villagasia, where food might still be found. But when he went outside, he realized that the lifeboat on the ship was actually from the group of survivors from the night before, likely taken, along with their supplies. Feeling that Victor was a good person, Manel confronted him about what had happened. Victor didn't answer directly. He only warned Manel that if he wanted to survive, he should stay cautious and not ask too many questions. He also admitted he had lied to the captain, claiming Manel was an engineer, to protect him. Sensing the danger, Manel decided to escape the ship and quietly made a plan. Before carrying it out, he snuck into the storage room and discovered 2 survivors tied up. He signaled for them to stay quiet and began untying them. But suddenly, a bald man shouted, alerting the sailors, who immediately shot him dead. Victor tried to intervene to save Manel, but one of the sailors attacked him. In the struggle, Victor killed the man and decided to join Manel in escaping. Together, they freed the remaining survivor and used the night's darkness to sneak to a lifeboat. But as soon as they started the engine, they were spotted and fired upon. The other survivor was killed instantly. Victor was badly wounded in the shoulder while fighting back, and Manel sped the boat away through the gunfire. Once on shore, Manel helped Victor to a safe spot and began searching for a working vehicle. He told Victor there was a helicopter pad at a nearby hospital. As Victor grew weaker from his injury, he told Manel about a secret hideout the captain had built on the island of San Alvora, a place reserved for those loyal to him. In this post-apocalyptic world, it seemed the cruel ones always had the upper hand. Talking as they walked toward the hospital, they discovered the helicopter was already gone. While searching the area, Manel was suddenly attacked by a zombie blocking his path. He killed it quickly to clear the way forward. The gunfire draws more zombies, forcing Manel to empty an entire magazine to take them down. He then carries Victor into the hospital, using glow sticks to light the way. He lays Victor on an operating table and goes to look for forceps and medical supplies. Suddenly, Manel hears children's voices coming through the ventilation system from the 2nd floor. He quickly heads upstairs, following the sound, but a zombie appears out of nowhere and he has to hide behind a wall until it passes. When he reaches the vent, Manel tries to speak to the people inside, but after only a few words, a zombie lunges at him. He swiftly shoots it dead and moves on, but the gunshots attract even more zombies, forcing him to sprint for his life. Manel dives into the operating room and locks the door, only to find Victor gone when he turns around. Just then, a female nurse appears and signals him to follow a different route. It turns out she had already moved Victor and the cat to a safer place. There, they meet an elderly nun and 3 children in hiding. The nun, named Cecilia, and the nurse, named Lucia, are both medical staff. Together, they perform surgery to remove the bullet from Victor. The children, curious about the cat Luculo, quickly learn to trust Manel, figuring that someone who cares for a pet can't be a bad person. The nurse reports that they've removed the bullet, but Victor still has a fever and will need time to recover. Manel explains he came because he heard there was a helicopter. The nurse leads him upstairs to what used to be a safe area, now destroyed. The helicopter is currently parked near a zone teeming with the undead. She says there's a tunnel that leads out to the hospital yard, but a recent explosion has made her afraid to take the children to check it. The kids are children of hospital staff, and most of their parents died in the disaster. Manel is moved by their story, as he too lost his wife in this very hospital. He goes to room 406, where his wife stayed a year earlier before she passed away, and silently relives that day through tears. The next day, Manel goes up to the roof to observe the area around the helicopter and discovers his phone has a signal. He receives many messages from Belen, though most are from previous days, videos filled with her hopes for her younger brother. He's about to reply when gunfire erupts from the floor below. Looking down, he sees 7 men dressed in black approaching, apparently the same group from a ship. Manel quickly warns the nurse about the danger and tells everyone to move toward the helicopter area before the men arrive. The group heads to the boiler room, the site of the earlier explosion, to find the exit to the helipad. They cover their faces with wet towels to keep out the smoke, but the coughing doesn't stop. Unfortunately, the heat has warped the steel door, and it won't open. The nurse hacks at it with a fire axe, and when the door finally swings free, a zombie bursts in and attacks the elderly nun. Manel drags the zombie off and pins it against the scalding boiler while the nurse finishes it with the axe. Even so, the nun has been bitten and knows she will soon turn. She chooses to leave the group, urging the nurse to get the children out immediately. The others press on, carefully avoiding nearby zombies. Julia will handle the door while Manel stands guard for her. In that moment, the youngest girl suddenly spots her mother among the horde and calls out to her. Victor quickly covers the child's mouth to stifle her cries, and Manel moves to comfort her and help her calm down. Right then, another zombie attacks, forcing Manel to scoop up the girl and hide in a small cabinet. After a few gunshots, the zombies fall silent, and through the crack, Manel sees that the men from the ship have reached this floor. The group decides to wait until they leave before continuing. At last, they get close to the helicopter, but to reach it, they have to skirt a zone packed with zombies. Manel notices a wheeled iron fence nearby and gets an idea. He links several fence panels into a makeshift shield and uses it to push toward the helicopter. However, a wheel hits a small object with a loud clatter, drawing the zombies, who swarm and surround the rolling barricade. Lucia holds up cardboard sheets to block the children's view, while Manel and the other adults strain to push the undead back. Manel blasts them with a fire extinguisher, and the nurse swings the axe wildly. The group struggles their way into the enclosed area around the helicopter. Lucia quickly breaks the lock and helps the children and Victor get inside first. She and Manel then chain the door shut and climb in. However, the helicopter hasn't been used for a long time and needs time to start up. Meanwhile, the zombies keep closing in, and Manel is forced to go back outside to buy time. The noise from the fight draws the sailors from the ship. Victor tries to start the helicopter, but the armed sailors storm in and threaten the group not to move. In the middle of the standoff, Manel suddenly smashes the barrier to let the zombies flood in. The sailors can't react in time and are overwhelmed and torn apart. Manel risks his life, swinging the axe with everything he's got, while Victor finally gets the helicopter running and begins to lift off. Thinking fast, Lucia drops a rope ladder for Manel. He grabs it and scrambles aboard at the last second. At last, everyone breathes a sigh of relief, and the exhausted children fall asleep in each other's arms. Just then, Manel gets a call from his sister Belen. Overjoyed, he tells her he's on his way to the Canary Islands, but Belen, panicked, tells him to turn back immediately. Before she can explain, two fighter jets streak past the helicopter toward the Canary Islands. The film cuts here, leaving a mysterious ending that makes viewers eager for an explosive sequel. A story packed with breathless survival battles and an emotional journey between people. That's the end of the film. Thanks for watching. Goodbye and see you next time.